Dear all, here I would like to read a fragment of Occultosophia, the chapter called The Watchtower of Venus, or Metaphysics of Love. As we all know, we experience the period of youth, of adolescence and adulthood, and various loves and affairs appear in our lives and fade away. The most fiercest of loves are but a trifle of memory that fades away with dead tears, and we have to cope with that. Yet there is always a question suspended in the air, asking, what is love? I once read Giordano Bruno's Heroic Frenzies, and that is the most beautiful book about love that I have read, that belittles Eric from the art of love to an infinite extent, by the way. But here I decided to put a Diotimic aspect to it. So let us read. Love follows humaneness. Humaneness is difficult to define. The Analects by Confucius or Master Kong. Let us notice that love is not put on the pedestal as the highest virtue as in some religions, but it is something that follows after the humaneness appears in our lives. Now, the man of the way is a true human being, a cosmic swindler, the great Claude, Chuang Tzu, translation, Burton Watson. Watchtower of Venus fell, all in disarray. Great ladies turned to wailing and fury, for Aphrodite is dead. That was in the 16th century, on sylphs, gnomes, vulcans, salamanders, and mermaids, by Paracelsus, Frater Bombastus. So, too often we psychologize love along with songs about biochemistry, relationships, and social models. Yes, they are all equally valid. Yet, love has another hidden, occult aspect. Love on the pedestal, a single virtue ex cathedra, breeds only wars and cannibalism. Any dualism that is inappropriate leans towards its opposite, like a swinging double-edged sword. The first goddess whose name was written in cuneiform on a clay tablet was Il-Ishtar, Dinger Ishtar, Il plural Ili, a Hammurabi era prefix for a god or a goddess. Dingir, Sumerian for god, goddess. Venus of Sumer was the goddess of love and war. When she ruled without balance, she came with war, furor, violence, aggression, and competition. Her blessed kings were victorious in wars and battles and were exalted in the gardens of Babylon, like Amethyst, that dear wife of Nebuchadnezzar II that fell ill. Based on what we know about biochemical processes, instincts, mating, and social traditions, all these stories about the general frivolity or austerity of ages throughout ages. Animal urges, desires, love games, and affairs. We have all heard and experienced these stories. What about the soul? Let us look at this loving question with the right old eyes. Diotima of Mantinea, living in 440 before modern era, that is 2462 years ago at the time of writing this text, was a philosopher, a teacher and lover of Socrates. Socrates had children by various women, and it is believed that he also had offspring by Diotima. The great lady warned him against harsh treatment of the Athenian people, and that speaking the truth to the people will get him into trouble. More importantly, in addition to her great philosophical themes, she also created a metaphysical model of perfect love. According to Diotima, love was not synonymous with the beautiful, but with the good, exemplary. The beautiful in love was a function, ergon, of life. Let us remember that the good in the Platonic school was in epithalamium with the intellect. The nous, which produced the world soul, was enclosed by the demiurgic activity, the will and the power, the act. The latter triad was set forth in the middle Neoplatonism of the Theurgist, Julian's Chaldean oracles. Diotima postulated that under perfect conditions, wisdom, phronesis, temperance, and justice sought the possibility of manifesting in life through souls in love. The triadic components of Diotimic love were Eros, Philia, and Agape. Eros was the erotic component, refined intimacy, touch, the art of sex, the art of flirtation in a way that corresponded to the Paidean standards of Hellenes. Eros conformed to the ethos and sexual behaviors of the Hellenes. It was not a contemplative function, but a merging, unifying, attractive force. Philia was the component of friendship, koinonia, or togetherness. If you are looking for a good treatise on friendship, you should read Plutarch's Escapades in Writing. Philia was the cementing bond that outlasted marriage. It is important to note that holding hands was the symbol of marriage clearly seen on Roman tomb reliefs. Rings were a status symbol worn sparingly, unless you wanted to be mistaken for a dancer or a generally loose person. I digress here, but rings on the Saturnian finger were worn by Gauls and Germanic tribes. Romans preferred the thumb, right ring finger, and index finger. It was Christianity that introduced rings as a marriage symbol. In the sacred pagan, hidden nobilitas worlds, they never symbolized marriage or betrothal. Nobilitas, pagan, was a pejorative term invented by the Galileans that meant villager, rustic, uncouth. The last pagan senators of Rome called themselves nobilitas, the nobles. Let us follow in their footsteps if we have even a hint of civilized behavior. The absolute beauty proposed in the higher mysteries of Diotimic's teachings produced the arete, virtue of souls. Arete heroized and perpetuated them, as well as the Isiac and Osirian Kepers, the hearts in toil, like scarabs entwined. As a counter-argument to purely physical love, she proposed the following. If a person loved all bodies after acquiring them, he will decide that love for souls is of higher value. Knowledge of absolute beauty was the prerequisite for love, but not its means. Most importantly, agape was the greatest and most fundamental component of all, like the E stone at Delphi. Plutarch has much to say on this subject, try Harvard's Loeb collection. Was to equate oneself with a god, a goddess in the world soul. In the panentheistic enotheistic view, this was not difficult, for mortals imagined themselves to be little gods and goddesses, in the sense that they were a part of a larger divine order as a procession of souls and gods. Procession meant to send out, as in metaphor. The E in Delphi of the Pythonesis, Typhonesis, is not to be confused with the axioms know thyself, gnotis auton, and everything in moderation, nothing in excess. A guide to living well within the framework of reasonable preventive measures, a warning against destructive passions and intemperate reasons. The latter ultimately led to the destruction of happiness in life, and the inability to properly receive the oracle of the Hypothetes. There were practical reasons for such advice. One need only observe how the modern world has violated such advice to see where it has gone wrong. A touching anecdote. I once asked an elderly gentleman for directions to a certain place. He advised me to the best of his ability, and I thanked him profoundly. When he noticed that I was traveling with my girlfriend, he smiled and wished us an abundance of love. Let me also convey these wishes to my readers in the diotimical tone. Selected biography, Diotimic's Concept of Love by Harry Neumann, and Chaldean Oracles and Theurgy by Hans Levy. Now I would like to read a little dialogue. That is the beginning of the Palinhikusi dialogues. Palinhikusi was Sicilian gods that traveled from the heavens to the Hadesian regions and transported souls. Love lost. Former, your presence peripsal reinforces my feeling and thinking the movements of Providence. I am here to tell you that I am suffering from a terrible affliction that my memories conjure up. Is it the image of a loved one that we conjure that is fading in our memory, alive in the conceit through the memory of a deep ideal feeling? It is so pathetically beautiful and unshines reality that we reach for this terrible imagination like a drowning man for a knife. For these are movements of the soul, mind, heart, and spirit equal to the Diotimic's triad of Eros, Philia, and Agape. Even as the most loathsome of men, even if barely capable of unconditional love, this idea that elevates the remnants of our ancient nobility cast down into self-loathing. We raise our beloved in the intoxication of the stars. We lose her to treacherous fates and the avarice of envy of the jealous, the unloved, the vicious, the ugly, the malignant. Is it ever healing the longing itself? We had to move it to the starry worlds. We had to perpetuate the remnants of our love in transcendent worlds, dealing with the loss on earth in the titanic movement of worship of the subject of our love. We place her in the robes of the Magna Mater, Cybele, as the sacred fetish of the universe. It is only a matter of preserving this golden thread between the movements of the stars and the divine, even if it is in the distance. To let go of it, letting go of her, this moment shines like a sacred face through the night vaults, immortalized in the gaze of the divine eyes. We lose the essence, the image we loved. It constantly transforms into surrogates, illusions, constantly moves and falls into a metamorphic falseness. And all this with ever new likeness that are only illusions. We scream inwardly, not this, not that, not the spirit, not any other. Who had tasted in the springs of Cytherea, the temple of Venus, who inconsolably loses the living idea of an affect, rediscovered in the aphrodisiac idea, is inwardly torn and howls. I must confess, it turns into miserable love-hate. In cold blade of my past cruelties, they are truly poisonously refined to tear apart what ruined us. Is it true that it is not the mere sameness of base humanity, but the loss of the hallowed, blessed and sacred epithalamium that makes us long for its phantoms? They are never returned to us in flesh and blood, just body and mind without the soul. So deeply rooted in the thrones of our sorrows that here a longing, there, who knows what mirage we will find. A deadly trap indeed, an infinity of shadows and as-if meetings, endlessly searching the shadows for chalices of long-lost loves that haunt us. We no longer share this human thread that we experience only in moments. We cast it into the dust of our graves without repeating the moments. We relive in the shadow of the titanic Eros. He is burned into our souls as a fearsome seal, at least in vanishing memories. We seek similar affairs, imitating the affections of others' eyes with resentment. What a curse, what a horror is this affection that only takes between relief, happiness, and suffering. It steals and robes and wraps us in its shadow like the death robe of darkness itself. Peripsol. From joy to suffering, from suffering to joy, this is the fate of a passionate, immoderate man. Love follows humanity and is preserved by moderation. It should be governed by wisdom, maturity, and insight. Alone without the support of sacrifice, it becomes a war, cannibalism, perversion, slaughter, in a suicide. I have observed your travails, you have been gentlemanly in your support of them. Malicious intrigues took them away from you, and now you live as strangers to her in oblivion. Sew up your torn hearts, find no rest in longing and feelings. Do not chase the past in vain, but let your black pyramid crumble under the hammers of knowledge. In every power you will fall, be a wise full of fate. Break, shatter the longing that you claim to steal the world from your embrace. Find your happiness as it should be. Let her star shine for all, not just for you. Her face immortalize devotion and pain, a mutual sacrifice at the altars of Cybele in this distance. Rejoice in the rise of her spirit and find your wholeness once again. For in harmonious wholeness lies holiness and continues to shape your destinies as far as you may. A spirit liberated for others, a great and noble thing. May it guide the others, for through this purification and rectification it is perfect in this verse and joins the processions with the gods. The spirit of this girl you knew has found its perfection far from earthly affairs. She is no longer her agitated narcotic mind and body, do not look for her there. Her mortal self lives on just like you with her feelings and thoughts, her sufferings and joys. Leave it now, dance with all of us among the stars when you drop the cicadic flesh. You are already one of us, do not be blinded by past mirages and pastimes. Remember that those who have appropriated their life have always and love, have always experienced the great sufferings of loss. With impermanence, forgetfulness or death, how could they gain anything back? So nothing brings more joy to the heart of the Mother of the Stars than the kisses you place on her magnificent robe. With each kiss a rose blossoms and the spirit breaks free. Go now, self-deceiver, you have saved yourself from a terrible death. Now so much about love. next lecture to be prepared. Thank you.